right now, putting you on the record, Michael Shure. President Obama, does he get reelected?
He gets reelected, and I think he gets reelected by a lot.
By a lot?
Yeah.
Give me the Electoral College number.
I think he wins this thing 313 to 215.
Wow, 313. That's a big.
Or 323 even. 323.
323.
Yeah.
Higher.
323. Right. Yeah. Actually, his votes went down, but
800.
his Electoral College went up.
Yeah,
Just like the jobs numbers.
Yeah.
No, I do. I think. I actually now think, and I've revised this. I now think that the president's going to win Florida. From people I spoke to in Florida, things I've read about Florida. Listen, sometimes you take risks and sometimes you say things that may or may not happen. But truth be told, I don't see a state that we consider a swing state other than Colorado where the president is going to lose.
That's really interesting because I, of course, said a long time ago that President Obama was going to win this race and it was over, right?
Yeah.
I understand that some people disagree with that call back then. Now, I've stuck with that 100% throughout, and I stick with it today, couple of days before the election, and I'm very confident President Obama is going to get reelected. Having said that, I'm actually going to be on the lower end of the Electoral College vote than you are. I think the range is 277 to 290.
That's fine. I see 290 and I see 294. I mean, 294 gives the president New Hampshire, doesn't give him Florida. What I see happening on Election Day now, as I look at this and as I see the sort of trend, and I see, listen, we talk about Sandy having an effect on the election. I think it does, and I'm not embarrassed that it does. I think things happen when you're president, so they're going to happen when you're a presidential candidate too, and that's the way it happens.
I was just going to say, if things go slightly wrong in the last couple of days, it can go down to 277. But the most likely number probably is 294, because the president is likely to win Iowa, Nevada, Wisconsin, Ohio, New Hampshire, and the states he's likely to win gets him to about 294. Things can go. I think he's probably going to lose Florida.
And there's reason to think that. I mean, I am going out on a little bit of a limb by saying that the president's going to win Florida. That's what makes my number, takes my number from 294 to 323, the 29 in Florida. But I do think that what happens on election nights is it's not wave-like, because I don't know that this is a wave election. But when you see typical behavior in other states, and we see these state polls, and then we see the national polls, the state polls sometimes become part of the national election psyche as well. And I think that sounds convoluted, but what I mean is that people, if they see Ohio going for the president, there's a chance Florida is too, that the same sentiments are happening there that are happening in a place like
So let me add
Ohio.
some specificity to that
Yeah.
point. If people see that President Obama's already won Ohio and maybe even Virginia, in which case the central time zone in Florida might be more discouraged from voting. The central time zone is Romney area, which then could swing a really tight election in Florida
Nevada.
to Obama's camp,
Right.
and then hence affect the outcome. Now these are all incredibly speculative.
It's an incredibly speculative thing, and what we often fall into the trap of doing is, okay, so the polls close in Virginia, the polls close in Ohio, it's going to affect the outcome. And the other. Well, just because the polls close doesn't mean they have results.
You still have to count it.
I don't think you're going to know it. But you remember, Cenk, we've sat next to each other waiting for numbers to come in Ohio and Virginia way after Hawaii closed. So, I mean, there's reason to think that, yes, the polls may have closed, but we don't know what's happening in Virginia yet. We don't know if Alexandria or Richmond or what's come in. We don't know what's happening in Ohio, which
God
counties.
knows we're going to be waiting for Cuyahoga County.
Cuyahoga County, always at the end. So that's what I'm saying. So you think, oh, it's closed, it's going to affect, but we don't know the results. So just because they closed doesn't mean you know the results.
Well, then you get the interesting result where they'll put up the state and they'll say, we are now projecting you as a winner with 0.0% of the votes counted,
Right.
which is always fun.
Well, that's a reliance on exit polling, and traditionally it had been good, and then it went through a bad period, and we'll see how it works out.
Before we finish up, Iadarola, number, Electoral College.
I would probably go for the 294.
Plain to say.
I mean, look, I don't have contacts in the states. I'm basically
Doesn't
just
matter.
reading the polls.
Sometimes those work against you too,
they could.
because you hear
because
opinions.
Bob thinks they're going to win, but then it turns out Bob's wrong.
Bob's
and the
wrong
polls
too.
were
I mean,
right.
somebody could think that I'm saying Florida's going to win. They're going to bet it.
Gingrich thinks Romney's going to get over 300.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean,
you never
What's a
know.
Gingrich?
Dick Morris thinks it's going to be a sweep.
But what do
for
you mean
Romney.
Romney's going to get over 300? Isn't Gingrich the nominee?
I
He
mean,
told me he was going to be the nominee.
He's the nominee.
The nominee.
No, I think the reason he's saying that really fast is just so that if by chance Romney wins and doesn't get 300, Gingrich gets to feel a little bit good about himself. He's a failure. Didn't even hit my prediction.
Okay,
Anyway.
it's a bizarre twist on it.
Yeah, it's too bad that we don't have time. I know that it's unlikely to happen, but I've been seeing articles about what will happen if there's a tie in the Electoral College, and it is a very interesting political maneuvering that goes on
Michael
after that.
can break it down for you in about 60 seconds.
Yeah, he probably can.
In 60 seconds. If there's a tie in Electoral College, first of all, one thing you have to keep in mind is the Electoral College is an actual entity that votes. So on December 17th, they gather, they vote. Those votes are somewhat malleable between the time the election ends and the time they vote. They're bound to them, but only sort of historically.
So just real quick, what that means is if it's 269,
They can flip.
the Republicans will spend an insane amount of money trying to flip one of the Obama voters.
They will. Then the House of Representatives, which is Republican, will elect a president, but the Senate, which is Democratic, will elect a vice president. So that's why people talk about the idea of Romney-Biden being in office in the case of a tie. As you look at the electoral map now, and you go across a lot of those states, you're not seeing the kind of math that would create that tie without being sort of an outlandish.
I read there are 30 ways that you could orient the
there are
map that would
30.
produce
There
it,
are
but they're
more than
unlikely.
30 ways that can do it. I mean, there are many ways you can come up with it, but in terms of logical, reasonable ways to come up with it, those are falling off the map, and I think Virginia is a big part of that right now because the polling has favored the president so well there.
Yeah.
I wonder what Romney would give Biden as a task as the VP.
Right, yeah.
Maybe keep talking.
Yeah.